I feel like we're playing with house money too, but let me tell you a small story, and I'm gonna pat myself on the back while I'm doing it, which is Mac Jenkins in his first year of tackle football this year, third grader, first year of tackle football. Mom was worried. I remember in the kitchen before we started the season thinking to myself, man, you know, I got a bunch of kids that I'm not sure they're athletic. Hey, I just want to try to, have a winning record. And then we made it to the playoffs. And then I'm like, all right, I want to go to the Super Bowl. And we made it to the Super Bowl, and I say, I want to win the Super Bowl, right? And so quickly, the house money becomes big expectations. And unfortunately, you're talking to a Super Bowl losing coach right here, third grade Super Bowl losing coach. That's me. So the house money only lasts so long. You got the Packers coming to town, and I feel like what all of us would have said is, man, how cool would it be if they made the playoffs? Now all of a sudden is like our expectations are let's win some playoff games, which is dangerous, but simultaneously you want to sit at the table and you want to have that high expectations in an NFL organization. So I think it's a positive. Now, how ready are they? I'll tell you that we've lost two straight, and I am way more confident in them than I was before that game. Like playing San Francisco to the wire, playing Detroit to the wire. I get it. Detroit didn't make the playoffs. You guys turn on the tape. That's not a non-playoff defense. Like you watch Hutch come around the edge. That's not a non-playoff defense. That's a brutal schedule non-playoff team, honestly, is what it looks like to me. Like they look like they got a tough schedule. They dropped some games they shouldn't have. They should be in the dance too. So the fact that we kind of struggled and then found it and then had a chance to win, like that to me has me way more positive. When I looked at the tape, the thing that's missing is, there's critical third downs early on in the game that we're not converting on, and there's conversions eligible on it. Like, Loveland on a bench route early, Caleb misses him in the progression. Then, Loveland again on a Hank route, he misses him. So third down, I think, is an area where this week, if I was to say, what do I think's going on in the building? I think what's going on in the building is Ben's kind of probably telling Caleb, hey, dude, I need you to trust me on third down, and I need you to work these progressions before you get into create mode. Because what I think's been happening to Caleb on third and fourth down is I think first and second down, we're seeing a different Caleb Williams. We're seeing a Caleb Williams that plays within the progression, does everything you're supposed to do. And then I think on third and fourth down, especially short to medium, I think he does start to think, oh, let me hold on to this ball and use my legs a little bit. And it's like, dude, let's still trust the progression. But again, are your legs more eligible on third and fourth down? Of course they are, right? Because you're a playmaker. You can go and get it yourself or create, extend it for us. However, we still want him playing within the progression early on in the play. And I'm guessing that that's something they're hammering going into this week.
Tim, that picks up right where we've left off in this conversation. I talked about how I feel like we've seen more pocket passing concepts, especially going back to that first Packers game, and you would know watching the film and what you're seeing, but it does feel like there are certain things that are being taught right now, and maybe they culminate to whatever we might see on Saturday. What do you think?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. If we can get him to play on time. Here's the thing is we had, I would tell you, I think it was probably three pretty brutal third downs, whether it was a drop or him not going through the progression correctly. If we correct that, yeah, this offense is going to look completely different come Saturday. The other thing I do want to preface is we also, if we're being honest about it, if Luther catches that run adjust backside on the final drive of the game, we're having a completely different conversation. The dude might score on the run adjust slant that he drops. Then we come back and guess what? Our center gets blown up. So our tight end coming across the formation of protection gets tripped and falls to the ground, leaving a free runner. DJ Moore's wide open on what we call a blaze out, where it's 8 yards, head to the post, and then get to the out. So it's like, dude, we had two plays that are huge chunk plays that turned into a drop and intentional grounding because of, I don't want to say fluke, right? Because everything happens, but more or less mistakes that I don't think will be repeated. And that for me is one of those where I go like, all right, we struggled on third down. It still came down to the wire, and we had plays out there on that final drive to seal it. And I just feel confident in them getting getting the third downs cleaned up and or the end of game cleaned up. Either one of those is going to get a win against the Packers.
I mean, I love the optimistic viewpoint of what you're talking about, Tim, but it just scares me that this has been the problem. Like, if there is I put that in air quotes, if there's a problem with Caleb Williams this year, it has been persistent the whole year, and that is, except for I'll say the San Francisco game, he got going in the second quarter, but for the most part, it's been the third and fourth quarters, and you're giving good solutions. Be better on third down conversions, or if there's a fourth down conversion, be better in those spots. I'm wondering, though, is it realistic to think that that's going to change this year? Just like we were talking about with the defense earlier, that it may not be realistic to think that the defense is all of a sudden going to magically tighten up and be good against these guys coming up this Saturday.
It's funny because, like, yeah, for me, I probably lean your direction in terms of being like, hey, is it realistic for that to happen? I probably lean no, but man, it's going to be exciting in the fourth quarter, right? That's kind of how I lean. But,
so true.
But then I go, but then it's like, to me, the fixes are so simple that I still hold out a piece of hope, that because I'm not sitting here saying like, hey, guess what? Caleb doesn't even know how to take a drop, right? Like it's, hey, dude, just instead of 3 and move on, 3 hitch the bench. Like, to me, that's such an easy change. And I've seen it with him that it makes me, I think, more hopeful for the third downs getting cleaned up. And I do think those third downs, though, a couple of those third down conversions are the difference between us being a fast starting team and a slow starting team. Is all of a sudden the third and fourth quarter, Caleb just starts converting on third and fourth down, right? That's all it is. This Bears offense starts converting, and early in the game, we're not. We definitely have to start fast. Listen, I think our scripted series has to be elite this week. If our scripted series can be great, we've got a shot. And again, I think the Packers defense a little bit different. It's gonna be interesting. This is a really big one. The thing that's hard is if the Packers, if you give me the Packers roster, but on a completely different team, like, hey, we're playing the Giants with the Packers roster, I skew so heavy to the Bears in terms of just what I think they can do this week. But the fact that it's Chicago, Green Bay, it just has that feeling of it's going to be tight. Like, it is what it is. Like, these games are always going to be tight despite, shoot, how many years, and like, let's call a spade a spade. How many years did we go up to Green Bay when they're rolling and you thought to yourself, we're completely outclassed? And guess what? It's a tight ball game, right? Like, right. So to me, it's, we're kind of living the inverse of that, where I feel way more confident in the Bears actually than I do the Packers. But again, it's a rivalry game and you're in the playoffs. Just everything's going to be amplified. Home field's going to be a factor, I think. But again, I do think these are things that are eligible to get cleaned up this week. I really do.
He is Tim Jenkins, the founder and CEO of Jenkins Elite. He joins us for Elite Radio each and every Tuesday here on Rahimi, Harris, and Grote. And Tim, I love how you've laid this out, because you've given me even further reason to believe that the Bears can win this game Saturday, which I don't know that I was leaning that way. I still might not be leaning that way, but you're making good points. I guess the question I have is, you're saying in the second half, he's doing the things on third and fourth down that he wasn't doing in the first half. Is there a mental component to this in your mind when you've seen like all this tape now for a 17-game stretch under Ben Johnson? Because you're saying it's simple. If it was that simple, they would have fixed it by now?
Yeah, I think you're onto it. Is there a mental component in terms of, are you early on in your NFL career and it's kind of like, you take possessions for granted, right? Which again, I'm not sitting there saying like Caleb Williams sitting in the meeting room saying this possession doesn't matter. Of course, that's not what he's saying. But is there a piece of it that as the stakes get higher, you start to really lock in on, okay, hey, my progression on this, or I start to lock in on, okay, hey, remember, if they go to this coverage, I got my Hank. I'm sure there's an element to that. And again, I think there's something that, it's just something to me that, it's hard. I don't really know how to completely articulate it, other than the 3 fixes that I saw on tape this week were so simple that it's almost, to me, when you hear Ben Johnson say, man, we had an easier game plan and we had just had some mental errors, it's almost like did we just not execute our footwork here? Did we just not execute with our eye placement here? And if that is the case, those are easily cleaned up. And I say that because I think he has a body of work proving that he's cleaning that sort of stuff up. Let's go back to how poor we were operationally week 1 to now. Like, we have a body of work of steady improvement. So I do think it's something that he can do. In terms of what do I think the difference is, one, I think every NFL offense gets better in the second half. And there's a big piece of me that I watched a lot of teams this week. Week 18's actually, I think, one of the more fun weeks to watch, because you sit there and you see the, Riley Leonard running out there for the Colts. You see a team that's been on a horrific slide since their quarterback went down. And they're competing with the best wild card team in the AFC. And they're running things like fake punt and then fake punt again, right? And it leads you to this piece of, then you watch the fourth quarter of NFL games and you watch the Steelers come alive after doing virtually nothing for 3 quarters. And it really does lead me to believe, like, man, I wonder how much better NFL offenses would be as a whole if you just came out attacking. Like, if you played like that for 17 games, how much better are you going to be? And I do think it's interesting, because I do think Ben Johnson is one of those guys who, and I know this week we're talking about them being a slow start, and they've been slow start before. I do think Ben Johnson is cut from that Kyle Shanahan tree, though, of it feels like we're coming out of the gate attacking. So, do I see, there's not a ton of glaring things on tape of what's different in the first, second, third quarter than the fourth, other than Caleb's own execution is better in the fourth, which then is it like, hey, when things are heightened, does he lock in more? And if that's the case, how can we get him to do that earlier on? That's, going to be a big piece of their quarterback coach in building, figuring out, hey, how's he wired and how can we get him to elevate first quarter, second quarter?
So one of the things, Tim, that was fresh with us was Ben Johnson yesterday, still carrying some of that same energy of what he did after the game on Sunday. And he said, we looked back at the transcript, that he counted 6 mistakes in the first 11 plays of the game. Did you see what he was seeing?
Yeah, that's not shocking at all. I mean, I feel like, and again, remember, Ben, a lot of stuff I highlight on YouTube is the pass game, right? And again, that's just, I'm a quarterback, and, that gets me excited. And I feel like most fans get, everybody wants to see the pass game. What I'll tell you, though, is the run game, to me, we were missing on some of our doubles, climbing up to the second level that we haven't missed on in the past either. I think that was just one of those games. I'm going to be honest. Like, we act like, how many times do we, how many times do I come on here? I only got to come on here and be great for 19 weeks. 6 of them, my mic's muted when I start, right? So it's like, I'm 6 for 18 right now in terms of even starting out okay. So it's like, we all struggle at our jobs to start at times. The Bears are no different. And I just feel like this was one of those weeks where, unfortunately, I think we probably thought the Lions were going to lay down. I don't know why we would think that. And they obviously did nothing but that. And then it took them a while to get going. When they did get going, though, man, I mean, you watch some of that, the shallow arm angle throw, the reset on the post touchdown. Like, that's his third progression, the post that he hits. I mean, shoot, he's looking at the in route that he's hit a million times. Then he's onto the shallow. Then he peeks the post. Like, the 2-point play where Komet, you guys, everybody, I always see on Twitter, Komet's on the ground again, but it's like, hey, Komet finds himself on the ground again. Guess what? He pops up, finds a way in the end zone. Like, there were so many things that I think we've got to say, all right, we started executing quality football. And I do think we just got off to a bad start with, not only MAs, right, mental errors, but I think physical errors too. And it just, we didn't quite dig out of it. And then our defense, who I thought did pretty decent those first 3 quarters. Like, I get it, they were moving the ball, and I get it, they scored 16 points at, to start. But, I thought they played pretty decent. They didn't have one more stop in them, right? We needed our offense to either be sustained or them have one more stop. We got neither. We lost the game. But again, I think it's hard for me to feel like, I don't want to like completely go to college, but Oregon, right? Oregon's got James Madison at home, right? JMU. And they don't really completely kill them start to finish, right? How good was that for Oregon then going into Texas Tech, where it's like, you got to win, right? Hey, the Bears, we got the 2 seed, but we got a ton of stuff to coach and be hard on you and have an edge this week so that you go in to the playoffs and you're ready to go to war. Like there's something beautiful to it, to where as a coach you could sit there and go, man, do I ever want to lose? No. But shoot, man, if I got a week where I got a ton of stuff to coach on and I can really get after these guys, and all of a sudden, hey, we got a bad run drill on Wednesday. Shoot, man, I can jump our lineman. This is exactly how we started, right? You can really get after them. It's got to make you feeling like these guys are going to be ready to go to war on Saturday.
I love the being fired up, and we love it when people coach us up too. Tim Jenkins, I'm sorry about the Super Bowl, but congratulations to the third graders, man. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
And
it was big. It was a big run. It was a big run. I hate to blame our quarterback, but Mac Jenkins just didn't have it at the Super Bowl, so it is what it is.
But that's the adorable age where the helmets are bigger than their bodies.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing. The parents that are worried, and I'm telling you, I think the ground made more tackles. Our boys tripped over lines more often than we hit anybody. So it was fun though. It was a blast, and yeah, it's my favorite quarterback I've ever coached though. So it was good.
Oh, I love that. The turf monster is also my biggest opponent in life, so I feel that. Matt, congratulations. Tim, congratulations. And thanks again. If you want to check out the full breakdown, it is worth it. Go to YouTube, All Things QB. It is a must-watch every week. Tim Jenkins doing work for us. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
All right, team. We'll see you next week.
Yeah.
See, he's in coach mode, team.
Totally. Oh,
I love it.
Yeah, he's on it.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, though, the turf monster will take me down.
Well, I was
I'll be
thinking
like,
about
"Ope,
it.
fall."
There are a